No matter what method you pick to protect your projects, waterproofing or weatherproofing can add durability to the fabric, making your project even more in demand for its ability to last. It also adds value to your project, as waterproofing protects the exterior from water damage and protects the buyer's items inside your project. In this video, we will be waterproofing fabric with the use of silicone. To do this, we're going to need to use the following: a lint roller to remove any stray fuzzies or threads from the project, paper towels on which to rest the caulk gun when not in use, a spatula or spreader, which is a rigid piece of plastic about the rigidity of a credit card. I'm using what's called a notched spreader, found with the drywall joint compound at a hardware store. The pattern piece or pieces, which should be cut out and interfaced, basically ready to be sewn if the waterproofing was not being added. A work surface. I'm using the back of an old cutting mat, but laying down craft paper works just fine. If you don't have anything like this, laying down some plastic wrap on a counter works just as well. Caulk. Clear, waterproof, or weatherproof silicone. Any brand will work just fine. Try and find one with a cap on the nozzle, as it does not take a lot of caulk to cover a project, and this will protect the rest of the silicone from drying out. And a caulk gun. Any level of caulk gun sold at your hardware store right next to the caulk will be just fine. Now that we have our supplies, let's talk about the application of the silicone. I found that applying 2 layers of silicone is best, the first being pressed into the weft and the weave of the fabric, and the second layer laying on top of the project and waterproofing the fabric. Before we begin applying the first layer of silicone, we must remove anything that shouldn't be on the fabric with the lint roller, because if there's lint or fuzzies there when we apply the silicone, it'll be there from then on. Before trying on your finished pattern piece, you should get used to working with the caulk gun and the speed that the silicone comes out on a test piece of fabric. When applying the silicone, you should work in sections. I've found that about a 6 by 3 inch section works best. To begin, place the caulk tip about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Pull the trigger of the caulk gun, then begin to move the tip right away in a slow line. Fill about 2/3 of your section with caulk. When you want to stop the caulk from coming out, press the thumb release at the back of the caulk gun. If you don't press the thumb release, the caulk will continue to come out of the tip, even if you're not pulling the trigger at the time. Take your spatula and then spread outward to the edges first, then across your project. The first angled swipe across your fabric should be to get the silicone spread evenly over the fabric. Then turn the spatula perpendicular to your project and drag it across the area. This will press the silicone into the weft and the weave of the fabric. Continue laying down a line of silicone and spreading it across and then into the fabric. You will end up with silicone on your hands. I still do after doing this for months. So don't get discouraged. Just remember to brush the silicone off your hands and surfaces before washing them. Every once in a while, turn your head from side to side while looking at your project. You'll be able to see a light sparkle of the silicone in the areas that you have pressed the silicone into the fabric successfully. Plus, the fabric will look darker. If the area does not look like it has been done, it hasn't. Plus, going over an area more than once is okay. Just remember to press the silicone into the fabric. Once you're done with the first layer, you'll want to let each piece dry for between 20 and 60 minutes, depending on how thick you put the silicone in the first layer. Touch a corner to see if it's still sticky. The silicone will remain a little tacky until it is cured for about 12 hours, but after a maximum of 60 minutes, you can move on to adding your second layer of silicone. The second layer of silicone should be a thin layer that lies on top of the fabric, more of a glaze than an icing. The idea is that after an area is done, the whole section will sparkle and shine, instead of just a little sparkle here and there, like the last layer. Unlike that last layer we put on, we're not trying to press the silicone down, so in this layer, we'll be spreading the silicone across the project, keeping the spatula at an angle instead of perpendicular to the project. I like having a glob of silicone on the spatula and letting it spread across and onto the fabric. This makes it easier to keep applying a good even layer, as sometimes the lines of silicone are laid down too far apart and you'll run into an area that does not have any silicone to spread across it. While applying, you may notice that your spatula leaves marks on the fabric in the silicone. Mine are usually at the place where I put down and pick up my spatula from the fabric. Don't worry about those marks until you have silicone across the entire project. At that point, go back and make long strokes with the spatula, removing those marks as much as possible. Some directional marks may still remain, which is why I make sure to work with the grain of the pattern of the fabric to make those marks blend in as much as possible. Here you'll be able to see the difference between a piece that has both layers of silicone and one that has only one single layer of silicone on them. See how the top piece has much more of a sparkle and shine? That piece has 2 layers of silicone on it. The bottom layer has only 1. After the second layer is applied, you'll want to let your pattern piece dry for at least 12 hours before sewing. I hope this video has helped you see how worthwhile adding the waterproofing to your projects can be, and in truth, how easy and cost-effective it can be as well. In future videos, I'll be demonstrating additional waterproofing methods, including OD coat and waxing. I'll also add another video on how each method sews, what problems I run into, and how I solve them. I look forward to making my next videos, and I hope you look forward to seeing them.